Logical fallacies are arguments that use shit reasoning. Let's run through a bunch of them in a speed round. Red herrings are a class of fallacy that attempt to divert attention from the real issue. An ad hominem is a red herring where instead of refuting the argument, you attack the person you're arguing with. Most appeals are a red herring, and there's a bunch of them. Like an appeal to popularity argues that they are correct because most people believe what they're saying. Other appeals include, but are not limited to, authority, emotion, fear, flattery, pity, ridicule, nature, novelty, wealth, etc. A straw man is a fallacy that attacks an argument that wasn't even presented by the opponent. A slippery slope states that a small thing will have a cascading effect that leads to a much bigger, usually negative thing, without sufficiently showing how it's going to happen. Begging the question is stating something as if it's already established as a fact, or stating the conclusion as support for the same conclusion. Cherry picking is suppression of evidence that doesn't agree with your foregone conclusions. Confirmation bias is probably the most common example of cherry picking. A false dichotomy is acting as if two given options are the only possible options, when in fact there are way more possible options. A false analogy is pretty similar and self-explanatory. The no true Scotsman fallacy is when you change a generalization to exclude a counterexample. The gambler's fallacy is thinking that a previous random thing's occurrence affects the likelihood of a next random occurrence. If you flip a quarter 9 times and get heads each time, the next time you flip it you still have a 50-50 chance. The poo-poo fallacy is the dismissal of an argument because you deem it unworthy of consideration. A hasty generalization is a generalized conclusion without enough evidence to support that conclusion. A slothful induction is the opposite of a hasty generalization, where an argument is denied its proper conclusion regardless of overwhelming support for it. Climate change denial comes to mind. Kafka trapping is trying to make a person feel guilty and then using their denial of guilt as evidence for their guilt. And of course, the fallacy is assuming that an argument with a fallacious premise has a false conclusion. You could just be right for the wrong reason.